Anybody want to take a bet on how many times I'll trip over this before we're done? Okay, I have, what time? Like, it's 9 o'clock exactly. So I'm going to go ahead and start because I want to be respectful of your time. My name is Lisa Kimbrell, and I'm your child's counselor for the second year. Unless you're new to Barret, if this is your first year at Barret, then of course this is the first time that I have them. I am going to talk to you about what to expect in 7th grade. I know this is the beginning of the second full week, but last year when I did a coffee talk, then at the end of the year, I sent out a survey to parents, and the number one thing that you asked for was, what do we need to know about 7th grade? So at the end of the year after that survey, I literally sent out to teachers, what do I need to tell my 7th grade parents to expect? So what I'm sharing with you today comes directly from them, directly from my experience with them, and directly from my 20 years as a middle school counselor. Well, 16 years, because I was a high school counselor for 4 years. So, direct from the teachers, you can see that, right? You have it on your handout if you can't. There's a lot of increased responsibility expectations in 7th grade. You wouldn't expect for your toddler to do the same thing as your adolescent, and your 7th grade teachers are not going to be as forgiving or as lenient as the teachers are in 6th grade. When they tell the kids, you come to class with your agenda, your materials, your whatever it is that they tell them to bring, that's what they mean. They're not going to let them go back to their lockers. It's not going to be, oh, I forgot. They're going to say, I'm sorry, that's a 0. And that's going to be even more of an expectation in 8th grade. So when your child says, I don't understand, last year, you need to remind them, you're not in 6th grade anymore. You know the system now. You've got a year of middle school under your belt. It's time for you to step up your game. Your bedtime's not the same as it was when you were 4, and the expectations for you this year are not the same as they were last year. And that's a fair thing. The teachers every year are going to ramp up what they expect from the students, because we don't want any of our kids to be in shock when they get to high school. The worst thing that we could do for them is handhold to the point that when they go to high school, they just can't make it. That's a really cruel thing to do. I don't know about you guys, but when I went to college, I hit a wall. At my high school, I didn't have to study. I don't even think I had any books my senior year. I remember people turning in books at the end of the year, and my homeroom teacher was like, where's your books? And I said, I never took any. I just used Andrea's. I just didn't. It was just too much trouble to keep up with. We kind of all kept everything in one locker. We had a lot of the classes together. I mean, if you were awake and paying attention, it was pretty easy. So, agenda materials and makeup work especially, there's not going to be 5,000 reminders about makeup work. Every single teacher that your child has a policy for makeup work. If your child tells you different, either they're not paying attention or they're not being honest with you, because they have a makeup work policy. It's required. If you got a syllabus at open house, it's probably on their syllabus. If not, email them and ask them, what's your makeup work policy? We're not entirely sure. Can you clarify for us? Because they have one. And it's important that your child knows, because teachers are not going to take 6 assignments at the end of the 9 weeks. It's just not. And I feel like I'm kind of preaching to the choir, because if you guys are here, in all likelihood, your child doesn't do that. But I'm just telling you, just in case, remind them they're not going to get multiple reminders. You remind them they're not going to get multiple reminders at school about their makeup work responsibilities. Late work is not accepted as a general rule. Now, that being said, if you have a horrific night at your house, I'm sure that never happens anywhere except at my house, but if it should occur for once in your lifetime, don't hesitate to email the teacher. Even if they say, I'm sorry, I can't take it, this was assigned 3 days ago, at least they're aware that your kid had a really rough night. You know, you've had a pet since before your child was born and the pet dies. That's a hard thing to take. You know, they lose someone in the family. Your neighbor's house burned down. Whatever it is. I mean, and we've had all of those things. Email the teachers or email me and I will send out the email to the teachers. Because if you've had a rough night, chances are you're not much in the mood for communicating either. So if you just email me, I will make sure that their teachers know. But as long as you're communicating, the chances are higher that they're going to get a break. You can sign in over there and just grab the... students are accountable for knowing their status. And what that means is, just like you have access to Parent Portal, students have Student Portal. They can actually look at any time to see what their grades are, if they're interested. So if they tell you, well, I didn't know, then my response to them would be, but you should have. If I have $1 million in the bank and I don't make my house payment, the bank doesn't care how much money I have. They're going to come and take my house. And I tell kids all the time, your homework at home, in your locker, in the car, at Dad's house, at Grandmother's house, in a friend's notebook, that's the same as me having $1 million and still not paying my bills. It's got to be where it's supposed to be, when it's supposed to be. And they know how much it's worth, what category. I mean, the teachers share all that with them. It's not like, you know, they're just turning in all this work and at the end of the 6 weeks this grade is revealed that's been a secret all this time. They know, and it's available to them. Students are expected to communicate with teachers probably before the parents do. That's going to be the big push this year. In 7th grade, kids should really start to advocate for themselves. I know that last year, and maybe even some this year, they felt intimidated. You know, I don't want to say anything to my teacher. Mom, you call her. And you need to say, no, I need you to go talk to her first. And then if that doesn't go well, then I'll talk to her after you do. Now, just between us, if you feel like you need to lay some groundwork and email the teacher and say, I told Johnny to come and talk to you today because XYZ, that's fine. Maybe the teacher will remember that, although, like, you know, if your child has that teacher 6th period, I can't promise anything, but maybe they will remember to say, Johnny, is there something you needed to talk to me about? Or you can email me and I can prompt them. But it's time for them to start advocating for themselves, unless you want to go to college with them, which I don't think you want to. Okay? And it's not, if it's something major, something huge, obviously you need to be involved from jump. But for the little day-to-day things, they really need to be advocating for themselves. They're capable of doing that. They don't have any problem talking to their friends. They don't have any problem talking, you know, to your friends probably. They talk to me in the cafeteria till my ears almost fall off. So it's not impossible. And if they're really nervous about it, let me know. Because I've role-played this with them 1,000,000 times, and I don't care to do it 1,000,000 more. Because it's that important. They need to be able to approach people in authority in the right way and talk to them about difficult situations. I mean, when my son was in the 8th grade, his hair was down to here because he would not call and make his own haircut appointment. And I just said, you're going to look like a shaggy dog until you do. And let me tell you, I didn't think we were going to win that battle. Because for the longest time, my husband was like, really? And I just kept saying, I'm not if you call, that's on you, but I'm not going to be his social secretary for the rest of his life. So it might be a hard road in the beginning, but it'll be worth it. Mr. DeCoste says this first bullet. It's a direct quote. What got you here will not get you beyond here. We have some really good students in this class. Really good students. They haven't met curriculum like this before. This will probably be your students' most challenging year thus far. The math curriculum is hard. Like if I had to do regular 7th grade math, I would literally have to sit down and spend some significant time with it. And I'm still not positive that it would be correct. I'd have to go and ask a lot of questions. That's just where they are, guys. And that curriculum moves fast. And there's homework almost every single night. So if they're not coming home with something, they're probably behind. I was checking grades yesterday. I've probably got more than 24 kids already that have a U in math because they've missed one assignment. But at this point in the year, if you've got 1 0 out of only 3 or 4 grades, it's going to kill your grade. And when they see that, then they get discouraged and well, I don't want to. It's a bad cycle to get into. So just encourage them. This is 7th grade. Things are different. It's going to move faster. You've got to stay on top of it. It's really, really important. Yes, ma'am.
I had a teacher, it was a 6th grade teacher of a 6th grader and a 7th grader here, would tell me that all assignments are on Parent Portal. I've been a parent of a JCPS student for a long time. I don't think that's accurate.
It's not. That's it. I wish I could tell you that that's the case, but it's not. Now, for that teacher, it may be, but overall, because here's what happens, and this is confusing too, and I've been on both ends of it. I've been a parent and I've been a classroom teacher, so I'm not making excuses. I'm just telling you what it is. When you put in an assignment, the computer defaults to that day. So if I've got my lessons planned out and what I'm going to take grades on, I might get really inspired on a Friday night because I just had a really rough week and think, Monday I'm going to hit the ground running, I'm going to be ready. And so when you open up Parent Portal, it might show 8 assignments, and the date might say 8/29 for all of them. And then the due date might be different for each one. And then I might not put any in again for another week and a half. Because when you go into the database for teachers, each assignment has to be given a name, it has to be given a category, it has to be given a point or percentage value, and then it has to be assigned to every student in a class. Now you can do that, like click a check all and it goes down, but it takes some time to put those in. So typically teachers go in and they'll put in a batch at one time. So that's why the dates don't always match. You'll say, well, this says it was assigned on 8/29, but they haven't even done it yet. Well, that's why. Because unless you take the time to go back and change those dates, then the dates are not always reflective of exactly what's going on.
Where do you even find that?
On the Parent Portal?
Yeah.
I don't, can't you all see that?
There's like a grades and then there's an assignments tab, like right.
It's under the grades tab.
Well, no,
Okay.
it's like where you would click grades. I think it's underneath. It's like where it's got attendance.
Okay. I'll check again.
And here's the thing about Parent Portal. Get in there and play with it. You can't tear it up. And if you do, I'll get you a new username and password. I mean, seriously, you can't tear it up. So just click on the tabs and look around in there. And if you have questions, email the teachers. I mean, that's one of the things, like I get emails about specific stuff like that, and you're really kind of creating a delay to your response for that because I don't know. I have to ask the teacher just like you would. So this is my best advice on that. If you have a question and you need a response fairly quickly, like we're supposed to answer our email within 24 hours. I try my best to do that. I know sometimes I get like a deluge of email and I might miss one, but I try to answer my email within 24 hours. But if you've emailed a teacher and you haven't gotten a response in a timely fashion, if you have to email them a second time, copy me, because I'm going to ask, did you answer that email? Or I'm going to go up and say, hey, I saw Miss So-and-so's email yesterday, but I didn't see your reply. Okay, so, hey guys, just sign in and grab a sheet, and don't worry about being late. I spent an hour in traffic. Anytime that there's a question about anything and you feel like that there may need to be follow-up, it's not offensive for you to copy me. That shouldn't be a big deal. So feel free to add me to that email in the CC line if you want to, okay? The curriculum will move fast. I told you that already. And it does. I mean, it flies in all of the classes because the jump from 7th to 8th is even bigger. Next year, your kids will be doing high school curriculum in at least 2 classes. They will have high school health, and they'll get credit for it, high school credit for it, and they'll also have, a lot of them will have high school level math. Now, they won't get credit for that math, but they can move on to the next math. And that's a whole other story that we'll talk about next year. But just keep in mind that your kids will be doing high school work next year. All of them will be doing health at least. Absences, oh my gosh. We have already some kids that have missed 4 and 5 days of school. When your child misses, even if they make up their work, they don't have the benefit of that instruction. And especially in math, it builds. If you don't know how to do X, it's very difficult to do Y. So I would encourage you, my poor children, being TKs, teachers' kids, some of you might be PKs, the preacher's kids. If there wasn't blood or vomit, you went to school. A fever was questionable because they've done the, right up against the vent. So if you were still hot when we got to school, then I might go into my office and sign in and say I got to go run her home because she's got a fever. But even a fever didn't always get you out because I knew that trick. So, whatever the rule is at your house, I would stick to it. Because absences, oh my gosh. Not only do they have the homework for that night, but they've got the homework for the previous night. Now, make sure that you know that when a student is absent, their makeup work, they are allowed the number of days absent plus 1 to turn in that work. That's district policy. So a lot of times our teachers will work with kids if they've been out for 2 or 3 days in a row. The teachers know that they're slammed. They've got a ton of work. And it's not unreasonable for the kids to say, could I have a weekend? And they may spend that whole weekend making up work, but at least they've got that time to process. Because what I see kids do a lot of times is they just kind of fly through makeup work, and it really kills them when they get to the next unit or to the next problem or whatever it might be. So if they can be here, they really, really need to be here. When the curriculum's moving as fast as 7th grade curriculum moves, it makes a difference. When your kids say, Mom, don't worry, I've got it, don't believe them. How many of us have it all together? We don't need any help ever, ever, ever. Oh, Lord, if I could have a personal assistant, like if I won that $750 million lottery that woman stole from us, that's the first thing I would do. I would have somebody just following behind me. Number one, picking up stuff that I laid down so I don't have to go back and get it because I can't remember where it is. They don't have it all together. They do not. So instead of saying, how was school? And we all know what their answer is, fine. What'd you do today? Nothing. Ask them, what's one thing that you learned today at school? What was your favorite thing that happened today at school? What's the best lesson that your teachers taught today at school? What was your favorite subject today? Give them something that requires an open-ended response while you have them trapped in the car. That's the best place. Don't ask them at home where they can sneak off to go feed the dog or take out the trash, and then you look around in 30 minutes and realize they've been upstairs in their room. Ask them why you have them trapped in the car. That's when you're going to be able to pull the most out of them, probably. Or if you have a rule at your house, that everybody stays at the table until everybody's done, ask them then. But someplace where you've got them confined and they can't sneak off. That's the best time to ask them. And give them that open-ended question so they can't just give you fine. Because I know that's the answer. The friends are going to change some. And that's so hard for these kids. Some of them came here last year and they had been friends with the same group of kids all the way through elementary school. And all of a sudden, there's new people. And friendships started to change and morph. And let me tell you, 7th grade is the year that we have the most relationship drama. They don't have the incoming stuff from 6th grade, that transition trauma. They're over that. They know where they're going. They know where they're supposed to be. They do have that part together. They don't have the pressure of 8th grade of we have to be smarter and cooler than everybody else and we're almost in high school. 7th grade is smooth sailing as far as transitions. But the relationship piece, they are all over the place. So just be prepared for that. You may hear, I hate her, and you're like, she's been your best friend your whole life. It will change again probably before the season does. So don't sweat it too much. And sometimes those long-term relationships break up, and it's not always a bad thing. So just, as always, be vigilant about who they're with, where they're going, what they're talking about. When you get a group of them in the car, that's when you get your most information. Because you all know parents are deaf when there's 2 or more people in the car, right? They talk about things, and I'm thinking, I can't believe you just said that. I'm like 4 feet away from you. But they do. So listen and just file that away under important information to keep in mind. Encourage them to branch out. Absolutely encourage them to branch out. They need to be making new friends. Now's the time. If they've never done X, Y, or Z, but they've always talked about it, now's the time. I know in this day and age, a lot of kids, like my granddaughter has been in dance for 8 years. She's 10. That's a long time to be in dance. So I get it that some of them are intimidated because they don't want to do something because they're like, well, so-and-so's been playing soccer since he was 3. That's okay. 11 is still not too old to join in. So encourage them to branch out. Service projects off campus this year. We are partnering with Wilder Elementary. We will be going there for the first time September the 28th. I'll be sending out a sign-up genius for parents to join us. The kids are going to do buddy reading, and they're going to make, I think I did something to this.